The revolution 1 year from today. I like that question. You remember, maybe you do, in 2017, when I sat down and crafted a 3-year strategy for our revolution. There are those who said they wanted to land us in Buea on the 1st of October. And they said, you see, Milan doesn't want us to go to Buea by the 1st of October 2017. That's why he's crafting a 3-year plan for the revolution. And I said, even if we won complete victory on the 1st of October 2017, we would still, the negotiation process is a long way. South Sudan signed the Comprehensive Peace Agreement in 2005. It only had its referendum vote in 2011, 6 years after the signing of the Comprehensive Peace Agreement. So your question about where we would be 2 years or a year from today, I think is a very important question. You see a lot of mudslinging and backstabbing and everything because a lot of people thought this thing would be overnight. It doesn't work that way. It's not going to be in our case that it works. The Israelis took 40 years wandering across the desert to finally reach the promised land. So sometimes we need to exercise patience, but we also need to exercise a bit of logical thinking to get to where we want to be. So where we're going to be in a year's time, I can't say with clarity. But I can tell you for sure that I'm hoping that we've learned lessons over the past 2 or 3 years, all the mistakes we've made to get us where we are. There are things we could have avoided. And if we had avoided them, we would be far better, in a far better position than we are today. But this is the nature of revolutions. They are never a straight line. It's always going around, navigating around obstacles, falling into deep pits, crawling out of them and finding a way forward. One thing I can tell you for sure is that things are changing very fast. Things are changing very fast. In a year's time, it's difficult to say where we are, but there is no doubt in my mind that we have achieved. If you remember the way as scope, we've crafted our strategy, we've crafted our thinking. We had said the very first year of the revolution was going to be a year where we invest in social cohesion. This means getting our people who are not educated in our issues to start understanding what it is, go around the world, educate our people, meet our people, talk to them, get them to buy in. By the 22nd of September 2017, we had achieved that. That was a concrete goal, it was achieved. Second was the internationalization of our struggle. That should have taken place in 2018. Unfortunately, you know what happened in 2018. We lost our way completely. The leadership of the revolution got hijacked and it went into all directions and we lost 1 full year. We have only achieved internationalization this year, 2019, where the world begins to talk about our issues. The world is beginning to step in. You have the Swiss who are beginning to come on board and say, listen, we want to find solutions to this problem. But it did not start in 2018 or 2019. These conversations with the different entities, like I said the last time, already the European Union, when we visited Brussels in 2017, had said, we have already approached the Yaoundé regime and we've told them that we are willing to help if they are willing. So it's been a long process of building to the point where we have achieved internationalization. Now, we are now in a final phase. The question is, are we going to derail once again, or are we going to be focused on the goal? What I see taking place over the past weeks troubles me, because once again, many have not learned the lesson to say, I don't believe in the route you are taking, but I will focus on my route because I believe in it, and that will be what I focus on. The amount of energy people are putting into disparaging and disinforming other people's route is very troubling. And that is what troubles me. That one, people have not learned their lessons, and two, we still leave the wolves who have always played this role of misinformation and disinformation to continue doing that. Question is, where does that leave us? Where is that leading us? I do not know. What I can tell you for sure is that as scope, and even within scope, I have to say there is a lot of derailment of several members who were thinking about the short term. We want to get into this thing because in 1 year's time, there's going to be positions we're going to jump. The moment they are not seeing it, you start seeing a lot of people playing mixed roles and multiple roles and so on, so on, and so on forth. That is normal. So we, as a movement, we know that our one focus should be the goal. All the drama that's happening around, you were asking your question at the very beginning was, we haven't been very present on social media, is a lot of what's happening on social media. I find it to be useful Useful how? Because it's a useful distraction. And while that distraction is ongoing, we are focusing on the steps that we have put in place for ourselves. We know where we are going, and we are confident we will get there. The question is when. We do not know, because all the aces are not in our hands. We only have some, and we are holding tight to those. One of the first things that we've done is that we have engaged very robustly the Swiss government to say, and you've seen some of that in our writings, to say we find it very troubling that somebody could attend the talks in Switzerland and on going home they get arrested. That does not augur well for what Switzerland stands for and what Yaoundé purports to stand for. As a result, we're carrying out a lot of engagement behind the scenes and putting as much pressure as should be put. That's the one. The second is that I'm going to talk about his situation, Abdul Karim, later. But I think, once again, the Yaoundé regime helps us every now and then. Every now and then, even when we get distracted by all the social media noise, the Yaoundé regime, out of its own folly, jumps in and hands something. By arresting Comrade Abdul Karim, it has committed a very, very big mistake, because it's now beginning to radicalize a certain segment of our society that in lots of ways was not so present in this revolution. And we need to capitalize on that. And that's what we're looking at, capitalizing on. So the regime is handing anticipate. I think by having taken that step, our comrade will come out only more radical than he went in. There is no doubt about that. But I need to also mention the fact that we need to continue to think about him, to reach out, show him whatever support we can, reach out to his family, and so on, because we know he is not going through a very, very good time. When you think about our 10 comrades who spent the time they spent at SAID, they could at least count on each other for moral support. It's difficult when you're sitting there all on your own. That's as good as but solitary confinement. So we need to put him in our prayers and continue to engage and continue to apply pressure on the regime to release him. And so, message of encouragement to him, to his family, like we've been doing, and continue to pray for him. But most of all, I think the message that needs to go to our people is that if we all put our efforts, we all engage in all the different corridors, be it diplomatic, legal, social, and so on, there is no doubt that our pressure would bring some results.
Who are holding the forts.
Yeah.
Do you have any words for them?
Well, there is always something to say. The first is that for our people who are displaced, especially those who are in Nigeria, I just want to reach out to them and continue to give the message that I've always given, to say, we understand your situation. We are doing our very best to give you support. And I think many of them know the work that SCOPE has been doing and SCOPE Women has been doing, supporting the women and the children and so on. Education remains a very, very important aspect of what we as SCOPE think that we need to support. I know that we are working very, very hard to find some kind of a solution to that, but we do not want to have a piecemeal solution to the education problem. For those who are on ground zero, internally displaced, it continues to be the most touching of them, because in lots of ways, we know that sometimes we cannot reach these people who are internally displaced, in spite of the fact that we know how much their needs are. We have tried to reach out to a few. We continue to do that through SCOPE Women and the other groups that are in place. There is work that is going on. We are able to help send some funds back home, which is good, because many of them are also now contributing to some of the SCOPE projects, based and thanks to the work that we're doing and the support that we are giving them. But I think it's not enough. Once again, it's not for me to say what people must do, but I think we must not relent our efforts in helping our people. One way of doing that, I've always said, is we need to look at our different small geographical, cultural areas and support through those cultural outlets, because then it's easier to do that than through a political outfit. So it's easier for me to make a contribution to people in my village who may be in need of support than me trying to do it through scope, which will be seen as a political outfit, and in that way, support that could be given to our people then gets blocked. So we must look at the different avenues through which we can reach our people. I don't think enough of that is being done. I'm aware that there's a lot that's being done, but we can do more. And I would just want to reach out to our people and say we continue to think of more creative ways of giving them support. There is always the issue of children going back to school. It's been 3 years, I think, almost, that children have not been to school. It remains a problem and a challenge for us. I know we had said, and we continue to say, yes, it doesn't matter, let them stay until we get our independence. The question is when? It was easy for people to say that because they thought we'll gain independence, or what, we will restore our independence on the 1st of October 2017. We are 3 years into it, and it's going to be longer. So we need to start thinking of creative ways of ensuring that our children get educated. Most countries, for countries that did not invest in the education of their children, that eventually got their independence, we can see the results. We can see what is happening to them. For countries that thought long-term and strategically and thought at some point we will achieve our independence, and by that point we need to have put in place a system that helps to educate our children in preparation for leadership roles. We are seeing it in countries like Namibia today and where they are. So we need to think very seriously about how we want to help our children to be educated and prepare them for the future which we cannot take away from them. And you cannot, we've seen it in South Africa, many of those who were part of the fight against apartheid ended up being criminals when apartheid got defeated, because there was no framework put in place to prepare them to be their own persons when the time came. And when you grow up in a system that says, make the territory ungovernable, that's the only education you know. When you eventually achieve your independence, then that person continues with the same kind of education that you gave them, which is make the territory ungovernable. We need to think beyond that, and it has to start now. So yes, that's something we are thinking very seriously within scope and how to move it forward. I know that there's been a series of efforts, consultations taking place, and we are hoping that at some point we will get some international partners who can help us with this. Finally, to the Amber Boys, and I think I've spoken to the general public, to the Amber Boys, we know that a lot of crime is being committed by boys sponsored by the regime, but we need to be on the watch out. We need to ensure that nothing under our watch goes in the way of crime, because history has taught us that any kind of guerrilla warfare that turns against its own people ends up being eaten. So it's important that we do everything to stop the kind of carnage, the kidnapping, the stealing, and even the killings that are taking place on our territory, sometimes being blamed wrongfully on our boys. We need to find a way of ensuring that the areas where we controlled are controlled in a manner that tells the world that we will be able to govern ourselves when the time comes.